If I'm France, I would be very scared, because this Spain team is going to be extremely frustrating to play. My goodness. I was talking about Lamine Yamal not having a great tournament so far, and I don't think it's crazy to say that, right? If you go from his first game to now, even including this game versus Belgium, it has not been a wonderful tournament for Lamine Yamal. At best, it's been a good tournament at best, right? If you're really being generous. But man, every single game, he's getting just a little bit better. And I know in the first few games, he didn't play the full 90, but even when he has played the full 90 in the knockout rounds, he hasn't necessarily been blowing you away. But every single game, every round he progresses, he's getting a little bit better. And what's scary for France is that you're going to have to put Luca Dean on Lamine Yamal. And might be the easiest left back that Lamine Yamal has faced all tournament. I mean, talk about barbecue chicken. If there is a matchup in that match where I am going 100% in the favor of one player, it is Lamine Yamal on Luca Dean. So I don't know what France are going to do to handle Lamine Yamal. Now, obviously, France have so many attacking options, so like this game is going to be incredible, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But man, this Spain team today, they're just so frustrating to play. Like, I'm looking at Belgium, who I think are bad anyway. Like, I never had any doubts that Spain would win this game, but Belgium just can't get the ball back. It's incredible play by Spain, man. And again, Lamine Yamal, the danger man. He didn't get on the goal sheet today. I don't even think he got an assist today. However, still, this brother is just so dangerous, so tricky. And now I'm seeing Nico Williams is fit to play. And man, this team, all of a sudden, they might have the makings of that 2024 team where they took the Euros by storm. And all of a sudden, these guys might be in the World Cup final instead of France. That's how good they could be. Now, to Belgium's credit, they were still in the game, even though they couldn't keep the ball, right? Spain were basically dominating them for most of the game, but they were still in the game thanks to the best goalkeeper in the world. And if there was any doubts on who the best goalkeeper in the world is, there should not be any more doubts, okay? With all due respect to the likes of, Allison and Donnarumma, right? It is clearly, there is a gap between all of those guys and Thibaut Courtois. You can talk about guys like that, guys like Joan Garcia. I'll bring your whatever keeper you want. If I needed a keeper today to save a shot, it is going to be Thibaut Courtois every single time. This guy has been the best keeper in the world since probably 2022, right? So this brother, absolutely insane performance today. And when he got injured and had to leave the game for Belgium, while Belgium are tied 1-1, man, I knew there was no chance whatsoever. I already thought Belgium had like a 2% chance of winning. That went straight down to zero once Courtois leaves, because man, he's just that good. He's literally that good. The best player for Belgium today. And sometimes they say, man, if your goalkeeper's your best player, then it's not a good performance. And I hear it, but this guy is just so amazingly good. He's constantly the best performer for Real Madrid too. Even when they were winning Champions Leagues, he was their best performer. So with that being said, absolutely incredible performance today from Thibaut Courtois. Unfortunately, he had to get subbed out. But let's talk a little bit more about this game, okay? Because that first half, again, both halves, Spain were dominating. But that first half, Spain were dominating. But the one thing that comes, with possession that we always kind of criticize Spain and just possession-heavy teams is, okay, it's one thing to have possession, but can you create? And, early on, Lamine Yamal had a few opportunities, but he wasn't necessarily as sharp as he's been, like at Barcelona. Like I've said before, his World Cup hasn't been blowing us away. However, eventually, Lamine Yamal gets the ball. This is a lovely play. Basically, Poro to Lamine Yamal, and then it's a give and go. So Yamal goes straight back to Poro, running down the sideline. Poro goes to Olmo, and then Olmo gets a good strike on this, saved. But then, was it saved? It might have been blocked. Saved or blocked. But then Fabian Ruiz cleans it up. And yeah, just nothing you could do against football that pretty, that exceptional, that technical, that immaculate. And yeah, I mean, from there, you kind of see how good Spain were today. Now, good thing for Belgium is, as much as there was a gap between the two teams, I mean, Belgium still have some crafty players. And I don't know how, but Charles de Ketelaere is getting on the end of these goals and these headers, man. And I never really, pegged him as as a guy to do so. However, Belgium kind of answered back within the next, 10 minutes. All of a sudden, Charles de Ketelaere plays a very, very great positional play where he's offside, gets just back onside, to be in position in front of the defender to get in, but behind the ball to get on this header and scores this goal. And man, Belgium going to the half 1-1. And I mean, if you're Belgium, you couldn't ask for anything more, right? You couldn't ask for anything more. And from there, look, the second half, I felt like it was mainly Spain just trying to get opportunities and Belgium just trying to survive, right? Spain trying to finish, but Belgium trying to survive and get 2 penalties or maybe extra time. And eventually, Mikel Merino comes on, after a bunch of possession and opportunities by Spain. Yamal had a few more opportunities, but eventually, Kubarsi, I think, hits this ball. And I think it's because, Spain are probably getting a little bit frustrated. They're trying to hit from the outside now. They're shooting, from deep, as I'd say if it was basketball. And this is where the whole Courtois substitution comes into play because at this point, Sonny Laumans is in the game. And Sonny Laumans is a good young keeper. He's a good young keeper, but he's no Thibaut Courtois. And you could see the difference, man. And Kubarsi hits the shot. Laumans saves it. However, he cannot catch this ball, so it kind of creeps out from under him. And Mikel Merino, who had just subbed on, is there to tap it in off of that loose touch by Laumans. And there you go. Spain win 2-1 to Belgium. Now, maybe if you just look at the scoreline, you think, man, Spain are just not good enough right now. Spain are a little meek, especially going up against this France team. However, man, they're in between the goals, outside of the goals. This team is just so good. It is a true collective. And that is why I think France should be a little fearful. And that's not to say France is a team of individuals either. I think France is a great team of collectives. However, when you look at that France structure, you don't necessarily have such balance, right? There's not a lot of balance. However, when I look at Spain, they are very balanced. And sometimes that's all you need. I don't know. I'm not here trying to say, like, Spain will beat France. I don't know if I can go out and say that. I don't know if I can commit to that. What I do know is this game is about to be incredible. And I think it might be closer than people might think. I think a lot of us will choose France, and I get it. I still might, if you ask me right now, I think I would still choose France to win that game. But, man, it's going to be close because I wouldn't be surprised if Spain do come away with the win. Now, this isn't just a Spain-France video. It's just all I can think about because I felt like Spain beating Belgium was always going to be the result. You know what I mean? It was always going to be the foregone conclusion. However, but we can talk a little bit more about Belgium and Spain. And I think in particular, what does the future look like for Belgium? Because there's no more Lukaku after this, probably no more De Bruyne. And, their times are done. Kevin De Bruyne just doesn't impact the game the same way anymore. Obviously, Lukaku's now coming off of the bench. So, I don't think it's a super huge loss because these guys weren't particularly carrying the team anyway, right? I think a lot of Belgium's good things now came down to guys like De Ketelaere and Doku and Trossard and Onana, who unfortunately got injured, right? And Tielemans, of course. So it's like it's the end of an era in a way, but I think it's more so transitioning to the next era. Now, I don't know if Belgium in this next era are going to be as big of a team to be reckoned with. I don't know if in the next cycle they'll be making World Cup quarterfinals in any way, shape, or form. However, I don't think they're in a bad spot. I think Belgium still produces really good talent. This team is, they're not just going to fall off. I think they're still going to be a solid round of 16 team, maybe a quarterfinal every now and then at the World Cup, but nothing too crazy. Hovering around the 10th to 15th best place in the world. So shout out to Belgium. Great World Cup, to be honest. Made it further than I thought, so we got to give them credit. But yeah, that's where I see them in the future. As far as Spain, this brother, Lamine Yamal, Lamine the Dream, my goodness. He goes as far as they take him. Obviously, they got to surround him with some good pieces, and I think Nico Williams is the perfect piece for Yamal on the other side. Spain are always going to have good midfield talent now. Obviously Fabian Ruiz, who benched Pedri today, by the way, and honestly was a good call by De La Fuente. They look good. They looked perfectly fine without Pedri in there. I don't know what that means for Pedri, but Fabian Ruiz and Rodri looked fine in there without him. So we'll see how that continues to develop. But I think also when you have Ruiz and Rodri in there instead of Pedri and Rodri, maybe it allows Olmo to worry less a little bit about the out of possession work just a bit. But we'll see how that develops because even then, without Pedri in there, they have Ruiz and Rodri, two treble winners. You know what I mean? Multiple time Champions League winner in Ruiz. So incredible midfield depth for Spain. And I think that's going to be their strength into the next few cycles, as well as, surrounding Yamal with some talent. They're fine at the back. Obviously, Kubarsi looks great. They're going to be right up there with France, I think, as far as France versus Spain competing for the top titles in the world. I think we will continue to see that for the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 cycles. I really do believe so. Look, we're all thinking about France and Spain, and let's talk about it a little bit more, just a little bit more, because there's just so many intriguing matchups. Not only Luka Dean on Yamal, but also you're talking about the Spanish defense versus this French attack. And how are they gonna live with all of that? I look at the Spanish defense, and it is a very, very good defense. I mean, Laporte's been brilliant. Kubarsi's been excellent as well. Pedro Porro and Cucurella are having great tournaments too. But I think of Dembele on Cucurella. I think of Olise on Cucurella, which we saw in the Champions League this season, right? And I'm thinking of Barcola and Due and Mbappe on the likes of Pedro Porro. I don't know, man. Kubarsi, as good as he's been, hasn't faced an attack like that all tournament, and you never will until you face France, right? The hardest attacker that the Spanish defense have faced might be Charles de Ketelaere, which is incredible. With all due respect to Ronaldo, but that Portuguese attack, we're not gonna put any words on them, okay? Because they are just completely underwhelming. So it's a totally different level for this Spanish defense to go up against this French attack. But football isn't just that. So, we got to get the ball to the attackers. So for me, I think the key for that game will be, how is this midfield going to deal with the Spanish midfield? If they align Olmo, Ruiz, and Rodri, I think you can kind of maybe have a chance because you won't be as, outnumbered in midfield. But if Spain decides to, really go with a Pedri in there or someone else, I think it could be a little bit of a long day because Pedri's such a good ball carrier and dribbler. So I think if you're, Rabiot or Kone and you're trying to guard that, that's going to be a lot. But on top of that, you still have Lamine Yamal. So you're probably going to need some midfield help for Luka Dean. So I don't know what France does there. You're gonna have to ask Olise and Dembele to do a little more defensive work. I think Dembele's fine in that. Olise too. These guys are really good out of possession pressers. But yeah, this is gonna be a very, very intriguing matchup. I would not be surprised. I've seen it before versus Bayern. If Dembele actually drops deep and has to mark one of the Spanish midfielders, because I saw him do it versus Pavlovic versus Bayern in the Champions League for PSG to get to the final. I think he would do the same thing again. And especially with this game, I think being in a domed stadium, the heat won't be too big of a factor. So I think we could see something like that. But we'll see what happens, man. I'm very excited for that game. This is a big win for Spain. And yeah, man, Lamine Yamal. I think for that France game, he's going to hit another level. I've seen him in the press talking about France have to be scared of Spain because Spain put the belt to France 2 times already. Thus, why should Spain feel threatened by France? And you know what? I like it. This is what players should do. Now, when you or a gamble like this, you also have to be able to take whatever comes with it if you lose, right? You got to be able, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? If you're going to gamble like this, then you got to take what comes with it. So, we'll see what happens, man. If your mom drops a stinker, I mean, that'd be kind of funny. I'm not going to lie. That'd be kind of funny, man. But we'll see what happens, man. I still like the role that Yamal plays in the sport because he's not scared. He's young. He's basically a rebel, right? A lot of us are like, these guys are young, shouldn't be so outspoken. But I like it, curbing the status quo and shaking the game up. We'll see what happens versus France, but I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Ollie Footy. Until next time, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. Tell a friend and tell a friend. We're on the road to 3K. Until next time, we